Most drivers think the biggest mistake happens when the officer asks to search the trunk. It doesn't. The biggest mistake happens 5 seconds later, because at that moment, the officer's watching something much more important than your answer. He's watching your behavior, and that single moment often determines whether the encounter stays routine or becomes a much longer investigation. Imagine you're pulled over. The officer walks up. "Good afternoon. Mind if I take a look in your trunk?" The question sounds casual, friendly even, but right now the officer hasn't decided whether this request is going anywhere. Your next response is the decision point, and most people get it wrong. Today, we're going to break down exactly how to refuse a trunk search without creating unnecessary problems, what officers are looking for, and the one sentence that keeps you from accidentally helping build suspicion against yourself. Every video here could save you from a serious mistake one day. Subscribe now so you don't miss what could protect you. Then share this video and drop your opinion below. I want to hear what you think. Let's get into it. Here's the trap. Most people think they only have two options. Option 1, say yes. Option 2, aggressively refuse. And that's where encounters often go sideways, because many drivers hear the request and immediately become emotional. Officer, mind if I search your trunk? Driver, no, you can't search anything. I know my rights. Officer, okay. Driver, this is harassment. Officer, sir, relax. Driver, you have no reason to stop me. Notice what just happened. The refusal wasn't the problem. The emotional reaction was. The conversation instantly changed. The officer's attention shifted. Now he's evaluating behavior instead of simply processing a refusal. That's the trap. People focus on saying no. Officers focus on how they say no. And that difference matters. So why do officers ask? Simple. Consent searches are one of the easiest ways to gather information during a traffic stop. If a driver voluntarily agrees, the officer doesn't have to spend time developing additional facts to justify a search. Consent eliminates obstacles. That's why the request is often phrased casually. Officer, you don't have anything illegal in the trunk, right? Driver, no. Officer, then you wouldn't mind if I checked? Driver, And now the driver feels pressure because refusing suddenly feels like admitting guilt. But that's not how consent works. People decline searches for many reasons: privacy, personal belongings, valuable property, or simply because they choose not to consent. The key issue isn't whether you refuse, it's how you refuse. And that brings us to the decision point. This is the exact moment the encounter changes. The officer asks, "Mind if I search your trunk?" Most drivers make one of two mistakes. Mistake number 1, they start explaining. Officer, mind if I search your trunk? Driver, well, I have some personal stuff back there. I'm kind of in a hurry. There's nothing illegal. I was visiting my cousin, and now the driver is talking too much. The officer has new information, new statements, new details, new inconsistencies to evaluate. Mistake number 2, they become confrontational. Officer, mind if I search your trunk? Driver, absolutely not. That's illegal. Officer, I'm simply asking. Driver, you're violating my rights. Officer, I'm asking for consent. Driver, this is ridiculous. Again, the refusal isn't creating the problem. The confrontation is. Now let's look at the correct response. Officer, mind if I search your trunk? Driver, I do not consent to any searches. That's it. No speech, no debate, no lecture, no accusations. Just, I do not consent to any searches. That's the phrase. Memorize it. I do not consent to any searches. Short, clear, professional, unambiguous. And most importantly, it gives the officer exactly one piece of information. You are declining consent. Nothing more. Let's repeat it. I do not consent to any searches. That's the entire response. Now, what happens next? In many encounters, the officer won't simply walk away. Expect follow-up questions. Officer, why not? Many drivers panic here. They think they must justify their refusal. They don't. A simple response works. I do not consent to any searches. Officer, if you have nothing to hide, why refuse? Again, I do not consent to any searches. Officer, are there drugs in the vehicle? You don't need to transform the encounter into an argument. You don't need a speech. The safest approach is remaining calm and consistent. I do not consent to any searches. Notice the pattern. The officer may change wording, the driver doesn't, because consistency reduces misunderstandings. Another common pressure tactic sounds like this. Officer, so you're refusing my request? Driver, yes, I do not consent to any searches. That's calm, that's professional, that's clear. Now, let's discuss something important. Refusing consent does not guarantee the officer stops investigating. Those are two different things. An officer may continue asking questions, may continue observing, may continue evaluating facts already available. That's why behavior matters so much. A calm refusal often looks very different from nervous over-explaining. Let's compare. First example. Officer, mind if I search your trunk? Driver, why? What are you looking for? I haven't done anything. There's nothing back there. Well, actually, there are some bags. My friend put them there. I don't know exactly what's inside. Now the encounter has become more complicated. Second example. Officer, mind if I search your trunk? Driver, I do not consent to any searches. Why not? I do not consent to any searches. Okay. The difference is obvious. One driver creates additional investigatory material. The other simply declines consent. That's the decision point, not the refusal itself, the behavior surrounding the refusal. Now, let's briefly cover the legal foundation. In the United States, consent is generally one recognized basis for a vehicle search. Because consent is voluntary, a person may also decline to provide it. That's the principle that matters here. You don't need to argue constitutional law on the roadside. You don't need to quote court cases. You don't need to educate the officer. The practical goal is much simpler. Clearly communicate that you are not giving permission. That's why the phrase works. I do not consent to any searches. It's short, clear, professional. Remember this phrase. The objective isn't winning an argument. The objective is communicating a decision. Many drivers lose sight of that. They think refusing consent means proving a point. It doesn't. The most effective refusals are usually the least dramatic. So let's put everything together. The trap is believing that refusing a search requires a debate. It doesn't. The officer asks for consent. Many drivers either overshare information or become confrontational. That's where encounters often go more complicated. The decision point occurs the moment the search request is made, not when the trunk opens, not later, right then. Your response determines whether you're simply declining consent or creating an entirely new conversation. And the exact phrase is, I do not consent to any searches. Short, clear, professional, repeat it if necessary. Stay calm, stay respectful, stay consistent. Because the smartest drivers aren't the ones who talk the most. They're the ones who recognize the decision point before the officer does.